Good evening, guys. What's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's the one and only African superstar back at it again. Make sure I'm going to put this one. Hold on just a minute. I'm happy to see you guys again. Thanks to the African superstar family. You guys are phenomenal. Welcome to all of the new subscribers that have been joining us here on the channel. If you are not yet subscribed, but you've watched more than one of my videos, absolutely make sure you subscribe. I want to also let you know I have a brand new track called Boom Boom. A lot of you guys have heard it so far. I will play a little snippet for you. Yes, I also have a tour coming up, and I'm also going to be a part of a virtual conference, the Africa Investors Conference, next weekend. Yes. Big shout outs. What's up, Hayward? Mr. Hayward, I see you there. Thank you for being the first in the chat room. Shout outs to Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you for tuning in. Yes, I'm going to talk about this topic tonight. Yes. So please make sure you get into the chat room. Like I said, I'm going to be a part of the Africa Investors Conference. Would love for those of you guys that are serious about your options here on the continent. Various countries represented at the conference. It is next Saturday and Sunday online. I'm going to post the link on my community tab, so stay tuned to that. I'll make sure it's up by tomorrow on the community tab. Yes, family. Let me go ahead and play a snippet of my brand new song, and then I'm going to get into this topic since we have people in the chat room ready to go, already on code. Yes, shout outs to the African superstar family. This is my brand new track, Boom Boom.
My new song, Boom Boom, is a crazy banger. Oh my god. I hope you have that.
One and only
the African superstar.
African superstar on the
You
track.
gotta wanna play it on repeat. Just listen.
International award winning. Yes.
Trust me. When it comes to lyrics,
In the
we don't
midnight
play.
hour, when I get next to you, butterflies in my tummy, and my heart goes boom boom. In the midnight hour, when I get next to you, feels so exciting, and my heart goes boom boom. There's nobody like you. You're my one and only. Since the day that we met, I remember you've been driving me crazy. I love your brown eyes and your chocolate skin. Not ashamed to say it over and over again.
In the midnight hour, when your pretty eyes meet mine, your qualities are mesmerized. You will go down on your knees, say a little prayer for me.
Mrs. You guys like my brand new song? Yes, Boom Boom. The link is here for anybody who wants to listen to it after the broadcast. Today I want to talk about proximity. Okay, the undiscussed reason so many of the diaspora are suffering. First of all, big shout outs to the African superstar family. Special shout outs to those of you guys that are here. And the first shout out to Mr. Hayward McCullough, who is the first in the chat room being on code. When you guys come in the room, please make sure that you get into the chat room. Greet. You can let us know where you're watching from or any other thing. And then definitely, as we discuss the topic, you can share your thoughts. Okay. Proximity is actually one of the reasons that I began to feel more and more uncomfortable in the Western world as I began to become more conscious. What is proximity? Proximity means that you are in a sizable, close proximity to danger or dangerous people. When, for instance, the COVID pandemic was going on, and other infectious diseases in the past, you know, chicken pox or the measles or poison ivy. You know, when you are in a situation where there's like a contagious disease or there's some type of danger, you know, sometimes there's a chemical spill, it might be toxic. Proximity puts you closer to the danger. Okay. And one thing that I have noticed in my synopsis of the situation, being a world traveler living in different countries and being able to look at things in different perspectives is I find that the closer proximity that our people are to our historical enemy, the worse off they are. When we look at the diaspora, okay, which for some of you guys that don't know what that means, okay, the diaspora means to be dispersed. It means how a people can be dispersed around the world, or they travel or they migrate or whatever. Basically, a people in different locations. So when we talk about the African diaspora, we talk about, obviously, our origins are here in the continent. However, we have been dispersed, migrated, living in many countries and several different subsects. Okay. When we take a snapshot of the diaspora and we see the suffering of the diaspora, who is notably the most emotional out of the diaspora, we see that it happens to be the group of our people that have been exposed to a particular type of environment the longest. Okay. When we look at continentals here, if you have lived here on the continent or visited here on the continent, big shout out to Susan, I see you there. Let me see a number one. Do we have any African travelers, any diasporian members that are currently on the continent? Let me see a number one, please, because I need you guys here to back me up. Hello. Yes. I need your support in the chat room. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. I'm going to get into this topic. I wanted to go to bed, and the ancestors like, talk this talk tonight. So I feel that it's an important topic. I realized I actually searched for this type of topic to see if there was any content out there, but I didn't see it. So I think it's time to discuss it. When we look at continentals, okay, and in some ways their perspective of the Western world, foreigners, non-Black foreigners, and, just the colonization. One of the things that allows those false pretenses to thrive is that the people here on the continent, for large part, are not living in proximity to our enemies. Now, the Western world has its claws in Africa. We know all about the exploitation of the raw materials and things like that. And obviously, there are splashes of the Europeans here. Obviously, we have those of them that have gone to settle in South Africa and things like that. But the continent, all 1.2 billion, mostly, is very homogeneous. And what that means is homo just means the same. It means the same people, the same likeness. So what allows continentals to be very oblivious about a lot of racial construct is the fact that they're not immersed in it. They're not dealing with it from day to day. Obviously, they're aware of the slave trade. And for many of the younger generations, the slave trade just seems so far removed from them. And because they don't interact with these people on a daily basis, because they've never faced police brutality, because they've never been profiled, they've never been called the N-word, they've never experienced lynching. I talked about lynching here on the channel, I think sometime last year, when there had been a lynching in the US, and I was speaking to my taxi driver. I got the text message, and I was just like, man, this is crazy. And he was like, what's going on? And I explained to him that a young man had been lynched in the US, and they hung him up on the tree, and this kind of thing. Do you know that this man, who was almost 40 years old, he was in his late 30s, he did not know what lynching was. I literally was the first person to show him what lynching was, showed him a lot of the pictures from the slave time, the actual, charred remains of people. And actually, when I got finished talking to him, there was a tear in his eye. There was a tear in his eye because it was the first time in his whole nearly 40 years that he became made aware of some of the very heinous things that members of the diaspora have experienced. Proximity is something that you need to think about. In my opinion, proximity is what is a huge contributing factor to the dysfunction of our communities in the Western world. And I've actually seen that even when people migrate from their homeland and they get to the Western world, they start being consumed with the environment there. They start doing things there that they would never do in their homeland because of the environment and the exposure and some of the liberties that are there. Proximity to our enemy is destroying our people. It's yet another profound reason why the continent is a better environment for us. Okay, when I talk about proximity in terms of infectious diseases, toxic chemicals, you know, natural disasters, everybody understands proximity. Hello? Everybody knows how dangerous proximity is, right? Okay, let's use the California wildfires as an example because that just happened about a month or so ago. Okay, the people that lived in the danger zone, the red areas, the areas that were at risk for the fire were in what? Proximity to the danger. Okay, now people that lived in my hometown back in Ohio, they weren't worried about no damn wildfires. Hey, they're thousands of miles away from the affected area. And the irony is, like, we are suffering a lot of fallout from being in that environment, and yet we still can't make the correlation that the proximity is a big factor. Okay, I use the example all the time about certain things that my probability of being involved in now that I live in Ghana is much, much less. For those of you guys that live in the US, you may or may not be aware that you are 25. The last time I checked the statistic, being in America, just being there, just residing in the country, you are 25 times more likely to become a victim of a gun-related crime than anywhere else in the world. So I gave the example when I moved out of the US in 2017 and I moved to England. The minute I boarded that plane, I reduced my chances of becoming a victim of gun crime 25%. Not to say that some other crime can't come and, affect me or something like that. But you see, our proximity in those situations is causing our people a lot of issues. This is a really good point, PP Bob. Shout outs to you. Says proximity can create psychological challenges for targeted groups. I don't think that, for instance, the fact that Black Americans are some of the most emotional people, I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that has to do with the proximity, because you are living in an environment where you are continually targeted, mistreated, unfair treatment, violence, and yet in that environment you are powerless, yet you are also essential to that. Okay, but living in that type of compressed environment where you have to come to the realization with yourself that you are going to be unfairly treated for the duration of your life because you are in that environment, that is psychologically damaging to you. I know, because I grew up in Ohio. I lived there. I went to school. I went to university. I began my career. That type of situation, when things happened to me that were wrong, just like here on the channel, I played that video of the young man working for Toyota in Seattle. You could just see in his demeanor, the way that he was speaking, that the whole encounter, the whole traumatic experience, that, being laughed at, being humiliated at his job, then trying to take channels to get it rectified, feeling like none of his colleagues cared, nobody cared. He was offended, he was upset, he cried to his mother, yet and still life goes on. And that's the reality that we are experiencing. Proximity is something we don't discuss. Living among our enemies is dangerous for us. And we can see how problematic it has become in the Western world. It's become so problematic in the Western world. Behaviors and perspectives and outlooks that used to be so foreign to our community Our people are now ingesting that. Our people are now behaving like that. Do we have any 80s babies, any 90s babies in the room? Hello, let me see a number 2. Any 80s or 90s babies? When I was growing up, there was, you know, we would hear about bizarre things. We'd hear about maybe serial killers or some kind of, very sinister crime or something like that. And instantly we would know that the perpetrator had to be a YT person, because that was not the type of crime that our people perpetuated commonly. You know, when, for instance, children were unruly, children talk back to their parents or they disrespect their parents, that was not a black thing. That was definitely a YT kid thing. All this mental illness that abounds, definitely not prominent in our community. Now it is. You see, being in proximity, the external factors are beginning to seep into our people. And so, for instance, we see now, what do we see in our people currently? We see a gender war between the black men and women. We see broken family homes. We see children growing up in those unstable homes. We see poor performance academically. We see heightened rates of violence. Hello? We see an identity crisis. You can look another black person eye to eye and they're going to tell you, I am not black. You can look a man eye to eye and he's going to tell you, I'm not a man. Okay? The distortion of our people that are in proximity to these people is much notable than those of us that are living in homogeneous environments. In those environments, we have to constantly advocate for who we are. And we have to constantly explain ourselves. And in many cases, we have to code switch to be acceptable and appropriate. When we're in our homeland, it goes without saying. Okay, nobody here in Ghana has ever asked, can I please touch your hair? How long did it take for you to do your hair? Are you a Beyonce music lover? You understand? Because there are some things that obviously are just intrinsic to your indigenous community, and I believe that another destructive thing that we do to our children is immerse them in that community. Okay, a lot of us know the psychological damages that we experience as adults, things that we had to get over, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, all type of emotional problems and all of that. Okay, then we go ahead and perpetuate the cycle and immerse our children in the same thing, and this is something, obviously, I know, having a foreign mother, when you have a person who immigrates to the Western world that comes from a homogeneous environment. Okay, my mother, born and raised in Bermuda, grew up in Bermuda and didn't migrate until she was a young adult. All right. That foreign-born parent has no clue about the experiences of their now child growing up in that Western world, because they come from a different environment. They grew up in a different environment. So the challenges that child experiences, our children experience extreme bullying in the Western world. The extreme bullying begins to harbor self-esteem issues. Okay? Self-hate issues. Not liking your hair, not liking your skin, not liking your features. Oh, your nose is too big. Your lips are too big. Your butt is too big. I grew up in the 80s or 90s. Apparently, I'm the only one because I didn't see any number 2s. You guys ain't listening to me today. Are you guys listening? Hello? We have 34 of you, which are not all in the chat room, and I'm asking trivia questions, and you guys aren't answering. Let's be on code. This is an interactive conversation. Okay, guys, I say the same things every day. When I come live, I like interaction. That's the point of me coming live. If I don't want to interact with you on a particular topic, I'll just record it and post it. Okay? So when you come to see me live, please be ready to engage. Get in the chat room, get in the conversation. Okay? A lot of our people in that environment are dealing with a lot of self-image problems, self-hate, feeling inadequate, feeling incapable. That comes from proximity. You know, growing up, being a teenager and things like that, you're trying to define yourself and you're trying to understand yourself, and things are changing and all of this. All right, Susan, you're from the 60s. Well, thank you for being on code. Nobody else knows when their birthdays is. I guess we don't have no 80s or 90s. When you are growing up and you're in those very critical years, when you are in proximity to people that don't look like you, many times that will breed dysmorphia, you know, because you don't want to be the one who looks different. You don't want to be the one who stands out. We see this a lot. You know, I went to a private school and I was one of 4 other Black children in my class, you know, basically from kindergarten up to 8th grade until I went to the high school that I graduated from. And I remember seeing my peers, a couple of my peers, go through this phenomenon because naturally the Black girls, when we would start growing, you know, we would develop faster. We would have more shapely bodies, you know, bigger breasts and all these things than our slim, well, you know, white girl classmates. And I remember one of my classmates in particular, you know, she started getting really critical of her face. She started wearing makeup really early, and she didn't really know how to work with her hair. Her hair would be looking, you know, how some of those kids that go to private schools, the girls, you know, they don't know how to work their hair. They're hanging, all their friends are white. So they try to use the same products and use the same type of makeup, and they don't know how to minister to their own body. We immerse our kids in those environments. This reason also, it also leads to like interracial dating. Maybe you guys didn't think about it, but yeah, it also leads to interracial dating and inferiority and superiority complexes about their racial counterparts. So this proximity thing is something that we need to entertain and understand that, yeah, it's another reason why. You know, if we've grown up in the Western world, we haven't really had an opportunity to live in a homogeneous community. I do recognize some people in the southern states, you know, they have been able to live in maybe Black communities, affluent Black communities, and go to HBCUs and things like that. But a lot of, you know, members of the Western diaspora, they have not been able to live in those environments. They've lived in diverse environments or environments where they're the minority, and it really, really affects the psychological well-being. And again, I correlate a lot of the issues that I see among the diaspora with the proximity, you know, because I mean, we don't see, you know, definitely the American diaspora is the most vocal. They are emotional. They have a lot of trauma, not to say that the other diaspora's trauma is any less, but, you know, again, when you get to live here on the continent, there's just some luxuries about living in homogeneous environments, you know, because dealing with daily racism, it's a grind. You know what I'm saying? It's a grind. Continual injustice, it's a grind. You know, especially if you're someone who is a consequential person. You know, growing up in my parents' house, if you did this, if you did that, there was consequences. And so when you go into the real world and you're seeing, oh my gosh, people are getting away with this and getting away with this, and nepotism and unfair treatment, and, you know, people are turning an eye to situations, it will mess with your psychological, because in your mind, for every action, there's a reaction. If I did the same thing, I would be punished, but because they do it, they're not. And it's very unnatural, and it's hard to negotiate. And that is why a lot of people are acting out. You know, there's a such concept called the voice of the unseen, the voice of the unheard, which basically means when you are overlooked and you're not acknowledged, then people start basically acting out to be seen, to be acknowledged, you know, because they feel unseen, they feel unheard, they feel irrelevant to society. And we see a lot of that in some members of the diaspora that are seeking attention, love, validation, and belonging, you know. So that's what we're talking about tonight, guys. I'm talking about the dangers of proximity, something that we don't think about. Just living among our people, our enemies rather, puts us at an elevated risk to experience a lot of things because those things are rampant in that environment. You know, I'm sure that Black children are much more likely to deal with police brutality or profiling in the Western world. I know profiling is a big thing in the UK too. They have something called stop and search, and they definitely profile, you know, ethnic boys, Black boys, you know, things like that, and do stop and search. Okay, you're definitely more likely to experience systematic racism in the Western world. Absolutely. You're going to experience it on the job. They're going to be discriminating on you based on your name, your appearance, maybe your hair, you know. Proximity. It's a big thing. And our people are suffering because of that. And I encourage you to look at the comprehensive picture. A word to my African migrants and continental Africans. Because of the colonizing and the brainwashing, often many people here just believe that to be in the Western world is better for them, it's better for their kids. For that, I would say, let us reference the nature example. Okay, in the nature example, we have so many different species of wildlife that live in the same jungle, yet they run in packs. They swim in schools of fish. They fly in formation. Okay, all the species stick together, even if they're coexisting with different animal life in the wilderness. Okay, when you remove your kids, for instance, from their community, their culture, their safety net, their home environment, their language, their natural habitat, and you place them into a very different environment, a lot of those children suffer. A lot of those children suffer silently. They start going through a lot of the psychological problems, trying to, you know, realign themselves with where they are. And in some cases, it's not always the best thing, you know, which is why I think when I see members of the continent and they go out into the world, a lot of them are very successful. They're very ambitious. They're very unbridled. Why? Because their psychological well-being has not been destroyed while they were growing up in their homeland. You know, they were able to be fostered in a decent environment so that when they become adults, they're functional and they're ready to get out there and do what they need to do. Now, when we look at the Western diaspora, a lot of them are challenged with, you know, mental illness, psychological issues, very emotional, and they're struggling because of that foundation, being immersed in that traumatic environment and members being continually offended. It's not like you only had one occasion. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you've only had one encounter. You've had countless encounters by the time probably you're like 25 years old. You know, I remember my first encounter started really early in school, you know, and again, I was in proximity. I was going to private school. Majority of my classmates were all non-Black, you know, so the closer you are to them, the more likely you are to experience these things. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. Okay, guys, I'm about to get into these comments. Please make sure you like the stream. Tonight's topic is proximity. Okay, the undiscussed reason so many diasporans are suffering. Okay, they are suffering because their psychological well-being has been impacted. It's been impacted by proximity to our oppressors, living among them, being educated with them, working with them, living with them. You know, you can't sit in water and not be wet. And like I said, we are seeing that a lot of the external, things outside of our community, things that never used to be associated with our people, is seeping into our people. Now we see our people doing the same things that they have done. Now we see their outlook, their perspective. Like I talked about on my episode last night, if you were to close your eyes and have a conversation with some of these members of the diaspora, you literally would think that you were talking to a black man or black woman. I mean, a white man or white woman. You wouldn't think that was a black person when they start talking their perspectives and all of these things. In the UK, there is a politician. Her name is Kimmy. And she's quite controversial because she is a Nigerian woman. But she seems to be like anti-black, anti-African, anti-immigrant. And it's just like, it's crazy. Of course, she's a divestor. She's married to a white man. And the things that she said, because you see, when you are in that environment, you have a point to prove. Okay. And the Western diaspora, you've probably seen it displayed in migrants. A lot of them, they will overcompensate because they're trying to fit in. Okay. They don't want to be seen as the foreigner. They don't want to be seen as the person who doesn't know what's going on. They don't want to be seen like they're new or they don't know the system. So sometimes they'll go above and beyond to prove that they are abreast of what's going on. And we see this with the divestors, because the divestors are trying to prove the point that I'm not like those negative stereotypes of black people or African people. I'm going to prove my point. A lot of them tend to be the most ruthless politicians or leaders there, because they have this identity crisis and they have a point to prove. Proximity to our oppressors is dangerous. And it leads to so many problems. Big shout out to the African superstar family. Mr. Harold McCullough, he's the first there. Guys, I have the link here as well. If you want to check out Boom Boom, the full song, the link is here. The audio is here on YouTube. So make sure you check it out, okay? Yes. Miss Susan is in the building. Tuco is there. Hello, family. Shout out to Sarah C. She's reminding you to take a minute out and like the stream, okay? So make sure we get the likes up if you're enjoying this. And make sure you leave your comments because I'm coming through. PP Bob says, proximity can create psychological challenges for targeted groups. I absolutely agree. That's what this whole episode is about. This is something we don't think about. And as we go about trying to medicate a lot of the system, the situations that we're in, instead of thinking, am I in the right environment? I think it's a question that many modern day black people are asking themselves, but I don't think a lot of people have taken consideration. I think a lot of the focus goes to medicating the fallout instead of eliminating the problem and getting down to the root cause. You see, because when I looked at a lot of the issues I had, a lot of the grievances I had with the Western world, I knew that was how the Western world is going to operate. I knew that the white people are always going to have the advantage, upper hand over me. I knew they had power. I knew they had position. I knew they had money. And I knew that I didn't have recourse to fight them because it's their playing field. It's like if you're an athlete and you go to the opponent's field to play the match. When you go there, your team is going to have fewer fans than the opponent team. You're playing on the home field. Their support's going to be there. They're going to have the advantage. They know that field. That's the field they practice on every day. That's what it's like when we're in this Western world, which is why it's almost a moot point to try to contest them in their environment. They're never going to let us get the upper hand. They're always going to find a way to preserve the best part of the nugget for themselves. And that's what it is. And so I realized my issue largely was with the environment. I needed to be in an environment where I was not going to encounter these things. And I know it was drastic, but it was the move. It was the move for me. I feel so much better in Ghana. You know, I don't experience the things that used to just incite me to anger. You know, the stupid questions, the irrelevant encounters, the stereotypes, the poor service, you know, just everything that goes with it. The profiling, you know. I encourage you guys to think about it. Okay, that's what this episode is about. PP Bob says there's wildfires in South Carolina now. What's up, Beacons of Light? I see you there. Yes, yes, yes. Cumulative passive aggression leads to elevated cortisol levels for non-Black populations, particularly Black. Teddy's referring to the video I played a couple nights ago of the guy at Toyota. I guess my understanding was it was like an icebreaker or something like that because he was a new employee. So, you know, I could see, I mean, we know how obnoxious they are. So I could see them saying, hey guys, you know, give us some moves, you know, kind of thing. And sometimes, you know, people don't want to rock the boat. So they just kind of go along with it and think, oh, well, maybe that's how they, you know, office culture. That's how they do things here. You know, and maybe it registered a little later that, oh, wait a minute, this didn't make any sense, you know, kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. I just have the video to go off of just like you do, but that's just my own guess. Teddy says, I have worked with white people. They don't try that foolishness with me. What's up? What's up? Shamsu Muhammad, I see you there. PP Bob, cognitive dissonance due to proximal strife. Yes, yes, yes. I feel this. PP Bob says touching your hair is low-key passive aggressive. Listen, let me tell you something, okay? That hair thing, they're trying to rouse you when they ask you. Okay, they are trying to rouse you 100%. They know that it's a sensitive topic. And they're trying to be funny. And then they also don't respect your autonomy because if you tell them no, or, you know, you give them some type of response, basically not an affirmative response, then they try to flip it on you like you're being difficult and you're being, you know, rude, or you're making a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. But they know exactly what they are doing. It's just like when they send out that N-word, they know exactly what they're doing. It's just like whenever they say something stupid, something offensive, they know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to provoke you. Okay? They're trying to push your buttons. And the people that they can read and they feel that those people are reactive people, they feel like those people are going to, you know, potentially give them something. Those are the ones that are going to poke the most. You know, the people that they're scared of or the people that are nonchalant, no, that's not engaging enough for them. Those people that they see that it's going to get under your skin or potentially irritate you, those are the ones. They know what they're doing. Okay, we're not the first afro they've seen or the first braids they've seen. I mean, they've been living with our people for centuries. This is not news. So I agree. It's definitely they're trying to be funny. 100%. 100%. And they know that it's rude because what it's correlated to is like petting, like an animal. You know what I mean? Like you see an animal at the pet zoo or you see a cute dog and you want to rub it and pet it. That's what it implies. And we are not animals. We are human beings. So it's just so rude and so inappropriate. All right. Big shout outs to the African superstar family. I got you, Teddy. I understood what you were saying. Yes, yes, yes. Susan's in the building. We see you. We see you. We see you. Healers Essential says we are feeling it here in the UK. Absolutely. Because see, the other thing about proximity, guys, the other thing about proximity is, especially with our community, it seems like they don't really mind when the Asian community has their own subsect or the Jewish community. But with our community, they want to make sure that we're interdependent, which means that we can't move without them. And that is a controlling tactic. Okay. We're going to control all the jobs. We're going to control the banks. We're going to control, the schools. We're not going to allow them any, leadership in their own communities. And we want to constantly be monitoring what they're doing. This is why they got so frustrated with the Black Panther movement, because the Black Panther movement was, ministering to their own community, providing, meals to their community, providing protection from the police, providing, other goods and services. They were even educating. They had an education program. You see, so they don't like that. They don't want us to be independent. They want us to be dependent. Why? So that they can control what we do. When they are guiding, controlling everything, facilitating all the aspects of our daily needs, we have no choice but to tolerate them. And this is why we often get punished when we do not go with the status quo. If we challenge them at work, they'll sack us. In relationships, a lot of times, you divestors, when you want to break up with them, or when you are not doing what they say, then they say, I'm going to make an allegation. They'll tell you to their face that they're going to call the police, or they're going to make an allegation. Okay. If you don't know, that's also a threat, because they know that the way you get policed is different than how they get policed. And they know that society is going to take their word over your word. So it's a threat when they say, I'm going to call the police on you, or whatever. I'm going to make an allegation against you. I mean, we've seen tons of Karens on camera saying the same thing, making up allegations, things that didn't even happen. It's the whole incident being recorded. Oh, she pushed me. She was being aggressive. She started it. Proximity, guys. Proximity. Think about it. Big shout outs. What's up, Sarah C? I see you there. PP Bob says the issue is not just looking different, but how you were treated. Doubt white kids over there in Ghana worry about how they look. Oh no, because we're quick to hype up everybody else, even though they try to tear us down. And they try to tell us we're not beautiful and we're inferior. And they talk about our complexion and they talk about our body shapes and all that. We freely hype them. We boost their confidence. That's another reason that they got to always be around us. I've not personally experienced it, but I know some of you guys that have non-Black friends, they're very insecure. They need constant reinforcement. Do you think my hair is okay? Do you think I look okay in this dress? Those of you divestors, you know that a lot of times your partners are very needy. They're very obsessive. They're very insecure. They need the energy that we give them. They need the validation that we give them. They need the hyping that we give them. Y'all be bringing them to the cookout. Oh, this is my light-skinned cousin. Oh, he's cool. She's cool. They not like us. They not like them. Yeah, y'all be quick to hype them up. But it's never reciprocal. They're critical of us. They're always telling us that we're not up to par while we're putting them up and lifting them up. It doesn't make sense. Proximity. Hello. Proximity. Sarah C is talking about roots. Shout outs to the African Superstar family. War Drum, I see you there. Shout outs to Susan with the first and only super chat currently. Do like Susan. We got 38 of y'all. Can I get a 5 on it? Hello. Can I get a 5 on it? Because y'all know this content is good. Yes, please. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. Yeah, this what I was talking about, this PP Bob. Some sections of Black Atlanta close to homogeneous. Yeah, I mean, I do recognize in the South, especially because of like the remnants of segregation, where there were certain areas that was white only or Black only, and some of that dynamic remained. Where certain parts of the town just kind of stayed the way it was, and obviously because I believe the racial situation there is still very pronounced. So a lot of the Black community has harbored together, versus in the West, in the northern part of the country, definitely like California, they have integrated so much, and it's really hard to find those, really, really designated Black communities unless some of them are, low income or those type of neighborhoods. The affluent black neighborhoods, I think a lot of them are probably in the South. I know there are some in like DC, but I would say probably around historically black colleges. Like for instance in Ohio, they have Central State, and that area nearby around there, just due to the college and due to probably the staff and the students, will be a bit more homogeneous. But from what I heard what a little birdie told me is the non-black people be applying to the HBCUs too. Huh? And trying to get to the HBCUs and joining our fraternities and joining our sororities, and our people be like, oh yeah, and letting them in. You see, the proximity is warping our people. It's messing our people up. Hello, guys. Make sure you get the likes up, please. Big shout outs. What's up? What's up? What's up? PP Bob says being ignored can also lead to girls laying up sooner than their peers in high school. I mean, the whole a lot of the social issues that are displayed in the Western world, they start exhibiting themselves in school. These racial issues, run-ins with the police, being profiled by the police, and obviously preferences and relationships. Obviously, if you're sending your kid to a whole white school and there's literally no black girls for him to interact with, or no black boys for her to interact with, probably maybe her first crush or his first crush is going to be a part of their peer group. And quite frankly, these little white tea girls are very aggressive with black boys. Very, very fast a lot of times. I saw it firsthand in my school. Okay, they're hooking up and doing stuff with athletes, experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and at that time, back in the 90s when I was coming up, they always had way more liberty than black kids. We had a bit more rules and structure and curfews, and you got to be home by the street lights, and your parents got to know where you are and what you're doing. They had liberty. They were the first ones to get cars when they turned 16. They could have parties at their house. They could drink with their parents, so that kind of culture, again, proximity starts getting into your kids because your kids are in proximity with them. Many Continentals will attest and talk about how sheltered they were growing up and how they didn't even know a lot of things here in Africa due to respect, the respect that young people are expected to have for elderly, older people. They couldn't even ask certain things or inquire certain things or have opinions on certain things here in Africa, because a child is a child and an adult is an adult. So a lot of, young people here grow up a bit sheltered from a lot of things going on. Obviously this new generation with social media, so much exposure with the social media, but previous, you know what I mean? I've met a lot of like my age mates here, and we've had these conversations in terms of, the lack of freedom that they had and ignorance in a lot of things that they had because they just didn't have that exposure, and that also goes again with the proximity. People here don't understand the perversion and wickedness of the West because those things are not taking place here on a frequent basis. So, some of those things are just so far-fetched. I know I've had conversations with Continentals and telling them some racial things that have happened, and they're just like, but why would they do that? Why would they do that? And I'm like, because they're racist, because they don't like you, because they use every opportunity to show you that they don't like you, that you're inferior, not like them, you don't have power. They will flex it on you. And I mean, it's a concept that some people struggle to get because it's just like, there's no reason for that. But that's part of the proximity, And when we look at Westerners, a lot of us, we just have that perspective on situations because we have been immersed in that environment. The proximity has forever changed us. you know, and for a lot of us, the damage is going to be irretrievable. You know, some can be salvaged, but a lot of people, the damage is irretrievable, you know, and it's destroying a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of our people just being at the wrong place at the wrong time have become victims of proximity. And it's safe to say if they were in any other environment, those situations that perhaps took their lives or ruined their lives would not have happened. You guys know that case of the Central Park Five, I believe, where a lady got assaulted and murdered, I believe, in Central Park. And the police literally walked in the park and they found 5 teenagers that were just hanging out. There was no proof, nothing connecting them to the crime. And they, you know, basically they manipulated the boys to give confessions and say they were involved in all this stuff, and they sent them to prison for decades of their life and ruined their life. And there's so many of our people that are falsely imprisoned in the U.S. Prison system. There's so many people that have become victims of gun violence. There are so many people that have had false allegations, had defamation of character. There's so many of our people with psychological problems because of things that have happened to them, traumatic experiences that they have had, all due to what? Proximity. If those boys weren't in that park in New York City the day that thing happened, if they were in a park in Ghana or a park in Kenya or a park in Jamaica or a park in Bermuda or a park in the Dominican Republic, that would have never happened to them. But because they were in proximity, you know, notice that the police, they didn't go and find any white perpetrator to put on the crime. They looked for some black people. You ever seen that movie Life with Eddie Murphy? I think it's Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. Same situation. You know, they get rounded up for a crime that they didn't commit, and they get sent off to, you know, prison. And the movie's about their life behind bars. And these things are not fallacies. These things have happened so many times they can't even be counted. So many victims of police brutality, we don't even know their names anymore. When I was growing up, we knew Rodney King. That was the most prominent, you know, case. Even in the case of Rodney King, he walked away to live. You know, he was badly beaten, but he survived their gang attack on him. But now, since Rodney, there's been so many deaths. I can't even keep up with all the names. And in those cases, what was a factor? Proximity. Proximity. Wrong place, wrong time, being outnumbered, being in a place where these things happen and occur. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. I'm on it tonight, guys. Proximity is what I'm talking about. Sarah C, she's talking about what I just mentioned. My friends in Ghana are educated and still don't fully grasp the concept of systematic racism. They were luckily sheltered. And this is another reason why diasporians, I mean, you know, I do understand there can be a rift at times between continentals and the diaspora because it's hard for them to relate. And even when they come to the Western world, sometimes they don't immediately recognize these microaggressions and all that stuff. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine that migrated to Ohio from Cameroon. And, you know, by the time we had this particular conversation, she had been living in the U.S. like maybe 10 years or so. And she told me she was so much more aware of these instances now than when she first came. But she said she could actually, in retrospect, look back and see situations where people were being funny and people were saying little things, you know, saying little things like, oh, do you guys have cars in Africa? Oh, do you have this and that? And, you know, she would just kind of answer them kind of just straightforward and not really think like, oh, they're trying to imply that where I'm coming from doesn't have cars and it's not developed, and these kind of things. And these are what's called microaggressions, when people are basically insulting you in what seems a gentle way or a non-confrontational way. They usually try to make a joke, or they make an assumption, or they say a stereotype. This is what we call microaggressions. Okay, you can break, again, sentence structure. Aggression, microaggression. Okay, so a big aggression will be I walk up in your face, slap you, push you, spit on you, call you out your name. Okay, a microaggression is a small, a little small thing, but obviously we know that those things add up. And when people are continually doing those things, a lot of people come to their breaking point, and it's very frustrating for our people, and then again, why do we have to suffer this? Why do we have to answer? Why do we have to check them? Why do we have to advocate? It doesn't make sense. Like, why? Because they're inhumane, problematic race of people. And they're literally obsessed with everything that we do. Big shout out to African Superstar family. Susan says they want to keep their jobs, too afraid to speak up for fears of repercussions that follow. I mean, our people have been suffering repercussions for centuries, literally. From the plantation to the corporation, we still get disciplined for not doing what they say and what they want and how they want it done. And that is why they often take a very authoritative approach to us. Even if, I think we've all had those people at the job that they try to boss you around, and you're thinking like, you're not the manager, you're not the boss. But immediately they think, hey, I'm in control here, and you need to do what I said. And a lot of times they're very aggressive with that kind of stuff. Sometimes even in public, they'll just be telling you this, telling you that. Don't park here. You can't do that. And why are you barbecuing at the park? And I'm going to call the police. And, just this authoritative ideology that they don't take with anybody else. It's as if we are their property. That's how they behave. That we have to answer them. We have to explain. We have to negotiate, like when we don't. But again, guys, proximity is it. PP Bob says, like black people talking about the European race tribalism between Ukraine and Russia. Musings in Bloom, I see you there. Big shout outs. What's up? Yes, Kimmy in the UK. If you guys don't know Kimmy, let me see. I gotta find out what her name is, because she took that white man's name. Let me see. I'm gonna type Kimmy in the UK. Kimmy is off the chain. She's been doing a lot of wild things since she got into position. It's not funny, but it's to be expected, because these divestors, they have a point to prove. Okay, her name is Kimmy Badenoch. She's a member of parliament in the UK for the Conservative Party. So if you are not familiar with Kimmy, she's an epic coconut. Epic. Epic. You should look her up. So that you know who I'm talking about. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. Aviated Views and Sounds, thank you for popping by. What's up, M. George? I see you there. Big shout outs. What's up? PP Bot, absolutely. And the correlation with, this integration is the what's the right word? Decline of our community. This is what I'm talking about. Proximity. Okay, we got, before, segregation, we had our own communities. We had stronger families. We had less interracial dating. We had our own institutions, our own farms, our own everything, because we had to be self-sufficient because of segregation. We were not permitted to go to certain schools. We weren't permitted to work certain jobs. We weren't permitted to live in certain parts of town and all of that. So after integration, our people just kind of abandoned our own initiatives and got in bed with these folks and got in proximity. And now, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, we're looking at it like, oh my God. Can we really say it was beneficial to us? Can we say that we've moved forward? They have strategically continued to cripple our people, so we can't even resist them if we want. How was the civil rights movement able to blossom? How was the Black Panther movement able to blossom? How is the Nation of Islam, able to stay cohesive? Because, hello, okay, by limiting the proximity to the outside groups and sowing into your own group, that is how you become powerful. This is an argument for why it's critical for us to come to the continent. If we understand unity and we understand empowering our people and we understand proximity issues, then the continent is the obvious answer. Because you see, every attempt we've made in the Western world has failed. We've tried to integrate with them. We've lived separately. We've tried to work with them, work in their businesses. We're still suffering. We've had our own businesses. They've destroyed it. You see? So we're in a situation, damn if you do, damn if you don't. And that is why, hello, that's why you're here for this episode. Big shout out to the African superstar. Aviated View says African tribes have been distancing themselves between themselves and it didn't work for them. Look at Africa now that they started working together. You can actually see some of the progress. Big shout outs. What's up? What's up? What's up? PP Bob, when pandemic went down and employees moved remote, Black employees, particularly men, reported better mental health outcomes due to limited or non-existent. Hello. Turn up the volume. A lot of us enjoyed the COVID lockdowns. A lot of us enjoyed the COVID lockdowns. A lot of you guys enjoyed working from home. Just keep it real. No more small talking. No more, micromanaging. No more work politics and all of that. You got some reprieve from constantly being around them. Now, I'm sure their mental health depreciated because, hey, they didn't have us to entertain them. Obviously they could be on social media, but being in the physical proximity, you see, because all their shenanigans actually leaches our energy out. We're very dynamic people. So our energy is contagious. And that's why they say, oh my God, you're so funny. Oh my God, you're so great. Oh my gosh, you're so energetic. And we're hardworking too. So when we limit their proximity to us, they're the ones who actually suffer. And we actually blossom. Hello. It's not rocket science, guys. Big shout outs. What's up? Yes, I'm aware, Teddy Davis. I think everybody's aware of Angie Stone passing away a few days ago. What's up, Audrey? Yes. Zoo and Shayna, I see you there. Audrey says, I'm in LA. South LA is 40% Black. View Park and Baldwin Hills, which are wealthier, are about 70 to 80% Black because the larger income allows for more stable neighborhoods, but VP and BH are smaller. PP Bob, non-Black apply to HBCU medical schools. That way they don't have to go overseas to study medicine if they're not accepted to white medical schools. TAQ123, I see you. Big shout outs to you. Okay, Sarah C said the Central Park 5 was in 1989. She survived. Corey Wise spent the most time in prison, 13 years. So if you guys have never heard of the Central Park 5, there actually was a movie. I actually watched the movie. Before I saw the movie, I wasn't aware of the story. I never heard about it. And I literally cried because these literally were boys that spent their foundational years, their youth locked away for something that they blatantly did not do. And the legal teams knew it. They blatantly knew that these boys were not guilty, but because, they were facing pressure to solve the case, they just went with whatever. And it's just devastating. And I mean, time is the most precious commodity. So when your time is unjustly taken from you, I mean, it's the most cruel thing. So yeah, I would encourage you guys. It's a story, especially African people. This will be a really good story for you to watch, to try to see how, Black Americans have been railroaded, how they've been falsely accused. I mean, this issue of a lot of people being incarcerated that are literally innocent, really. It happens more than you know. And imagine growing up in that environment and seeing these situations, thousands of these situations by the time, you're in your 30s. You've heard of how many cases of police brutality. You've experienced systematic racism. Your friends have experienced it. Your parents have experienced it. You know about the slave trade. You see it. I mean, it's just overkill. And you can't fault the diaspora for being a bit messed up, because hey, they're in that environment. They're in that proximity. If you grow up elsewhere and you come in your 30s and 40s, you aren't necessarily going to be sensitive to your environment, because a lot of context you just don't know. But this is what I wanted to talk about tonight. Big shots. Thank you, Sarah, for those details. Sarah's talking about the movie I Saw Life. Yes. Sarah C talked about Amadou Diallo. I believe he was he a Senegalese man? I believe the name looks Senegalese. But anyway, he was, a victim of police brutality. He was, shot several times, I believe 14 times or so, because he had a wallet in his pocket and they mistook the wallet for a gun. How do you do that? But anyway, they executed him. He's just one of many. There's so many. Tuco says they can decide whether you live or die because we're so dependent on them for life-sustaining things, for survival. So I can understand why some would not choose to speak. I mean, that's why that's why celebrities don't speak. That's why very few speak. Okay, because they are intertwined. Like I said, even when I was living in the UK and I had this channel, I knew I had to be mindful about my topics in a particular way. I knew I couldn't talk the way I talk now, because I'm free. Hello. Because I live where, in the motherland. Yeah. I can't talk like this then. No. And I'm aware. And again, this is how they want it. This is how it's always going to be. They have no intention of giving us more liberties. That stuff is just that stuff is lip service. Okay. You don't have freedom of speech. Right now you might have freedom of movement, but I think, that's something they want to clamp down on as well. Those of you guys that are interested in your plan B, I mean, in my opinion, it's just imperative, because things are continually changing. And because they don't want us to live apart from them, they have made it so complicated and difficult to get out of that system. They have an interest in making sure we're retained. And it's not far-fetched to think that they can make it so that it's more difficult or hard, less attainable for us to do this, especially with all this interest of the diaspora going to Africa. You got to know that that's definitely on their radar, So today's price is not tomorrow's price. Things are changing. Susan says, I was referring to move in the bombing of Philadelphia, PA. Black Lives Matter. This happened on Osage Avenue, West Philly, May 13th, 1985. I mean, there's been so many attacks on our people. So, I mean, countless. And also, whenever these things go down, they're always mum about it. You know, it doesn't get international news or anything like that. They just kind of sweep it under the rug, and a lot of times we don't really know these things. Like, I found out that Central Park was actually built on a historically black neighborhood called Seneca Village, which I didn't learn that. I've learned that in the course of the last 10 years. You know what I mean? They actually made a lot of man-made lakes and flooded, you know, places, areas that were black communities. You know, they took the interstate project and they ran the interstates in America through the hearts of black economic areas. I remember in Columbus, my grandmother showed me pictures of an area called Mount Vernon. Shout outs to any other Buckeyes in the building, anybody else from Columbus, Ohio. Mount Vernon, before they put an interstate straight through the middle of it, you know, which Mount Vernon used to go all the way down to the heart of the city. They put an interstate right in the middle, blocking the community from downtown. So a lot of traffic used to go through that area to go downtown. But once they put the interstate there, people took other routes and didn't visit that area, which meant businesses shut down, restaurants shut down, and it was all deliberate. You see, so many countless attacks. We have some of the more publicized ones, you know, like Rosewood. We have the Black Wall Street and things like that. But there's a lot of little things that went on. You know, farmers, cattle being killed. You know, all kind of heinous things because that's their nature. You know, and again, when you are in proximity, okay, you are at a heightened rate of danger. Let me be the one to tell you. When you are in proximity, you are in a heightened rate of danger because you are accessible to them. You are close to them. Okay, and they have the upper hand and they have the power and they have the say and you don't. And you can think that you do. And you can think that you do until you try to exercise it. And then that's when you're going to find out. You know. So big shout outs to you guys tonight. Thank you so much for stopping by. Special shout outs to Susan with that super chat. I appreciate it, honey, because we had a lot of people here and you're the only one who decided to send me a little something. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. If you enjoy this content, please make sure you join our platform so you don't miss our discussions. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, everybody who added and put information in there. I much love and appreciate you guys, and I will see you all again soon. Yes, please make sure you add Boom Boom to your playlist. And we're going to close out with Boom Boom. Yes.
Right, this song, Boom Boom, is a crazy banger. Oh my God. I hope you have that.
One and only
the African superstar.
African super song of
You gotta want to play it on repeat. Just listen.
International award winning. Yes.
Trust me. When it comes to lyrics,
In the
we don't
midnight
play.
hour, when I get next to you, butterflies in my tummy, and my heart goes boom, boom. In the midnight hour, when I get next to you, feels so exciting, and my heart goes boom, boom. There's nobody like you, you're my one and only. Since the day that we met, I remember, you've been driving me crazy. I love your brown eyes and your chocolate skin. Not ashamed to say it over and over again.
In the midnight hour, when your pretty eyes meet mine, your body be so mesmerized. You will go down on your knees, say a little prayer for me.
Yes, guys, that's a snippet of my brand new song, Boom Boom. I just added the link to the chat room. So if you want to go over and hear the whole song and listen to it here on YouTube, you can definitely do that. All right, family. Until we meet again, stay black and true. If you ain't black, just stay true.